Alrighty, welcome back to the Art for O.U.R channel. This is Dan Preece. I have been absent for a little while. I had a trip with my wife. We hit 20 years for our anniversary, which was amazing. And then I got sick for a while. Then I was on call at a couple of hospitals, and life just happens. So that's where I've been. So I wanted to take another swing at this globe vase thing. I've already done one that turned out pretty cool, and I wanted to do a night version, and part of this worked out, part of it didn't. I had some issues in the middle there, per usual, but in the end, I like how it looked. It's kind of a darker, more elegant type vase, and I'm actually quite proud of it. My original goal was to recreate the appearance of Earth from space. Have you ever seen the cities where you can barely make out the continents and the cities can be seen because of their lights? And so the idea here was to get a really dark blue resin and then make the continents black and then drill a bunch of holes, tiny little holes, and just make pinholes for the city so you could shine a light inside and do it. Well, I chickened out before I got to the part of drilling holes because the walls of my vase got too thin, and I didn't appreciate the burning with a blowtorch, how much that would weaken it, and so I just had this feeling I was about to ruin it if I continued. So I stopped, and that part will have to wait for another day. But in the end, I still like what I got. This is yet another chunk of willow wood. Good stuff. It's strong enough to hold its shape, soft enough to carve without killing yourself, and it's got a lovely look to it. Of course, in this case, it didn't really matter. We were going to destroy any semblance of wood appearance, but it's a good wood to work with for my kind of projects, or at least anyway, I've been able to make it work. If you're new to my channel, I always sell my projects at Art for O.U.R. The proceeds go to Operation Underground Railroad, which helps fight child trafficking around the world, child and adult trafficking. They're heavily involved in finding new locations for these people, repatriating adults, whatever is needed to get them back into a normal lifestyle, quote unquote. And it's an expensive process, so I love supporting them. It does my soul some good to do something other than work and do something for somebody else. I filled this crack in this log, and it turned out I didn't need to. In the end, it ended up right in the middle of an ocean, but I wasn't so sure how much that crack was how big a role it was gonna play in stabilizing the whole log. I didn't want it to come apart, so I glued that baby together just in case, and that was fine. Just use some super glue and sawdust. I suppose that's one nice thing about the type of work I do, the type of projects I tackle. Generally, the quality of the wood doesn't really matter. It can't be rotten, and it can't be really soft wood, but as long as it holds together, it provides a framework for carving and holding other pieces I put into the windows I often cut into my projects. So oftentimes the log is going to be sacrificed, and so I don't really care the quality of it. And before you post about how much wood I'm wasting here, I have an entire forest in my backyard and a massive wood pile, and I will never get to all of it. It's rotting faster than I can use it. If you look around my shop when I'm kind of pan out, you'll see I've got some big metal racks around, and I've got the best wood I could find drying in there, so I'm trying to protect the good stuff. But I've got another 10 times that amount out there rotting, so yeah, I don't really care. It's at least it's going to a good cause as opposed to just rotting out there in the wood pile. Since we started the art for O.U.R, it's been 2 years now. I've been at this about three, but we started that website a couple of years ago. We've been able to successfully get about 100 different artists to donate stuff, and we usually have a repertoire of, I don't know, 400 or 500 pieces available to be purchased. We've got links to an Amazon store where you can do your normal Amazon shopping. You can buy merchandise, mugs and cups and things, all kinds of things. Everything we can donate to Operation Underground Railroad, we do. So that's the whole point of it. So if you're an artist or you know of one or you've got some creative gene in you, go for it. Make something, donate it. We'd love to host and sponsor your work. We try to give artists as much credit as we can. I know it's hard to just donate stuff, especially when it's your livelihood, but anyway, any support is always appreciated. Compared to my last project, I think I did a better job of not distorting the continents. I know somebody's going to get out here and go, "What did you do to my country?" But I think it did a better job. One thing I struggled with is the map turned out to be a little bit too big for the globe size. But you know what? It is tricky to get the right proportions in all aspects. Not just not the distortion of the continents, but rather the overall size, matching it to the size of my sphere of wood. I need to find a better software program. I don't know if I've sung the praises of Arbortech enough. That's that small carbide tip tool I was using there. For the big excavations, I like to use a chainsaw. For the medium excavation removal of wood, I like to use these angle grinders from Graph. With the cutting, I'm sorry, the cutting disc is from Graph, and then Arbortech's the smaller stuff, and their little carbide tip cutter is just fantastic. Cuts like butter, and it's not out of control. It doesn't climb up the wood and catch and buck and that. Really, really like that. And their ball gouge, they've got two sizes, big and small, those are awesome too for kind of hollowing out things, getting into tight corners. It's fun to experiment with what's out there in the power carving world. I'm also using a RotoZip, which is kind of a step down from a router. Routers are really powerful, and if they get out of your hands, they just destroy. But the RotoZip's a little more tame, and it's tiny. It's a couple of millimeters wide. The all-purpose cutting bit. So good tools I've found. Now, somebody's going to catch on that I blowtorch this thing twice, and you're going to say, well, why'd you do that? You just sanded it off anyway. Well, the whole point of this first round was kind of a test run to see how it looked, see if I liked it or not. But more importantly, I wanted it to burn around the edges. I didn't want my edges of my continents diving into the resin and looking really white. I didn't mind if it was a little brown, but I wanted it really dark all the way around. And so I knew I had to blowtorch at least once and then come back to it. The plastic I use for my mold construction is called Polywall. I find it at Home Depot. I can't seem to find it on Amazon, but it's just a basic plastic sheeting. They use it on the back of like utility boxes and things and really cheap backsplashes. But it's great because it's just rigid enough to hold back the rice or sand I use to pack around my projects. And my whole goal here is to get a rigid enough shell built around my project that I can put it in a couple of plastic bags, put it in sand or rice, and then pour resin in it, and therefore have a really tight, almost perfectly custom mold. Every time I make a project, it's a different size and shape, and it's just not practical to do silicone molds for everything. If you were doing the same project again and again, it does make sense, but a silicone mold this big would be expensive, and I'd never use it again. So this is great. It's cheap, not a lot of waste, and it's worked out well to use that. I've figured out how to cut it in slits so I can bend it however I need. If I was really on my game, I would have flipped it over and put the tin up in the air so it didn't get in the resin at all. But you know what? Sometimes, sometimes 11 o'clock at night, which is when I finally find time to work on my projects, the old brain isn't working too well. So I have done that in the past, and why I forgot, I have no idea. As always, a huge thank you to Total Boat. They're a major sponsor of my channel, to the tune of quite a lot of resin every month, which is amazing and makes the charitable aspect of my channel doable, functional. So thank you to them. They've added a new wrinkle to things lately. If you use the code you'll see in my video description, not only do you get a discount, but I earn a little percentage of the sale, which is again donated to Operation Underground Railroad. So if you buy your resin through Total Belt using my code, you get a donation is created, as well as you do save some there. So I've loved their Fathom resin. It's just been great for these deep projects. Now the debate as old as time with resin is, how do you get rid of the bubbles? It's not as big a deal with these dark projects as much as it is clear resin projects, but I have found that a couple of hours in the vacuum chamber with my wooden project in the resin is very helpful. And the reason for that is it helps seat the resin deep into cracks and fissures and defects in the wood and the deep open grains, which is really important to prevent streaming bubbles of resin, which will happen. Um, if I wanted to take it a step further, I would degas the resin before I put it in my project, on my project, and then put my project and the resin through the vacuum chamber again. That'd probably be even better. But then the pressure pot does a different thing. It helps whenever you stir resin, I don't care how carefully you stir it, you always get a little bit of these little tiny micro bubbles. Again, more important when it's clear resin, but when you put a pressure pot on, or put your project in a pressure pot, it squeezes those little bubbles so you can't even see them. They become invisible. And so that's important. I let the thing cure in the pressure pot for 3 or 4 days, as long as it needs to cure, and that usually helps a lot. And you'll notice it was in a little chest freezer, and because I'm pouring a gallon or two of resin at a time, the thickness of the wall of that resin, if it exceeds 2 or 3 inches, it gets really hot. And then there's also something to do with the total volume of resin I'm using. When it sets up, it gets really hot, so you have to keep it chilled. And if I can keep it under 60 degrees, it seems to do just fine. It doesn't fissure or bubble or crack. So those are my 3 techniques for getting almost perfect resin every time: is vacuum chamber, followed by pressure pot, followed by careful temperature control. I'm out here in my garage, so it gets pretty hot in the summer, so that's when that freezer becomes more important. But if you can do those 3 things, you almost completely eliminate any bubbles. The only thing I'm struggling with, I shouldn't say struggling, but once in a while I'll get a little bubble stuck under a ledge inside my project, like on one of the edges of the continent. And if I had a way to vibrate the whole thing and shake it loose, that'd probably be to my benefit. But just some more things I've been thinking about. I actually tried a couple of things that you're not going to see on here. because I didn't like how it worked, and so I reworked it. I textured the continents the first time around just to make it more interesting, like they actually are textured, you know. Um, but I didn't like how it looked, and when I first, or the second time when I torched it as well to darken the continents, I learned a very valuable lesson, and that is if you're, I think two things happened. There was a little bit of moisture from when I had wet sanded, and also my blowtorch was too hot. Maybe a combination of the stuff evaporating, but maybe probably more just the heat. I would get little tiny little bubbles that would explode out of the resin. It wasn't boiling; it just kind of break and shatter from the expansion. And so I thought, oh, that looks kind of cool, like bubbles in the water, you know. But then I thought, nah, when you see a picture from space or Earth, you don't see that kind of a thing. It just didn't look good. So between the texturing that I did turned out not liking and the bubbling, I sanded it all down another quarter inch and then torched it again. So you didn't, I spared you watching that part because I just, you know, but in full disclosure, that was an issue. Um, yeah, you know, I got to learn all the lessons the hard way. That's kind of my rule. Well, I'll turn some music on here so you can enjoy the rest of the video. As always, I auction my pieces off for Operation Underground Railroad, as I mentioned. And if they don't sell an auction, I put them on Art for O.U.R, just listed it amongst the woodworking section. But this piece will be auctioned for the next couple of weeks, so up through the first week of April. And if this is really old video you're watching, that's 2023. And there's already a bid on it, so it will be sold. And I would love to run that up as high as we can, raise as much money as we can for Operation Underground Railroad. So if you go to artforour.org and click on the link that says current live auctions, there'll be a piece or two being auctioned off there, and go ahead and bid. That'd be amazing. So I'll see you guys on the flip side. So much appreciate your support. We're about to crack $100,000 raised at Art for O.U.R. So go buy something, donate something, spread the word. It's all for a good cause. You guys have a great weekend, and I will see you on the next project. Take care.